Coming up today, President Park Geun-hye reiterates South Korea's will to intensify pressure on North Korea through sanctions. She says it's the only way to get Pyongyang to abandon its nuclear weapons. A deep difference of opinion between South Korea's political parties means the National Assembly might miss its Tuesday deadline to elect a new speaker. Plus, senior officials from the United States and China are holding high-level talks in Beijing as tension related to the South China Sea and North Korea threatens to bubble over. Stay tuned for these stories and more. Hello to our viewers around the world. It's midday on Monday, June 6th here in Seoul. Thank you for joining us. I'm Mark Broom. Today is Korea's 61st Memorial Day. To mark the occasion, President Park Geun-hye, home from a diplomatic tour to Africa and France, gave a speech at a ceremony at Seoul National Cemetery. She honored the nation's fallen heroes and reiterated her call to North Korea to give up its nuclear weapons for unification and peace on the peninsula and in the world. Song Ji-sun reports.
President Park paid tribute to the nation's fallen heroes during her speech on Memorial Day at the Seoul National Cemetery on Monday. She expressed the nation's gratitude to those who fought in the Korean War and those who fought for Korea's independence against Japan's colonization. She also expressed regret for the divided Korean peninsula, saying that North Korea's pursuit of nuclear weapons is the biggest obstacle standing in the way of a unified Korea, posing a threat to regional and global peace. Pointing to North Korea's recent claim of being a nuclear state made at its Workers' Party Congress last month, President Park warned once again that the regime's nuclear and missile development will only lead to further isolation and stronger pressure from the outside world.
정부는 북한이 비핵화의 길을 선택하고 대화의 장으로 나올 때까지 국제사회와 긴밀하게 협력하면서 강력한 제재와 압박을 지속해 나갈 것입니다.
The president pledged to firmly respond to any provocation from the north and vowed to further strengthen the country's defense readiness in alliance with the United States. With representatives from the country's rival political parties present at the ceremony, President Park also issued a call for unity.
국가 안보에는 여야, 지역, 세대의 구분이 있을 수 없습니다. 국민 모두가 하나된 마음으로 힘을 합쳐야만 분단의 역사를 마감하고 한반도의 평화와 통일의 길을 열어갈 수 있습니다.
In her first public appearance since returning from a 12-day trip to Africa and France, President Park also pledged to fully support efforts to expand benefits for war veterans and persons of merit and secure quality jobs for retired soldiers. Song Ji-sun, Arirang News.
Now, South Korea's three rival parties are meeting this afternoon to try and work out who should take key positions in the 20th National Assembly. But with the first extraordinary session scheduled for Tuesday, watchers say a compromise is looking ever more unlikely. Shin Se-min reports.
Time is running out. The first extraordinary session of the 20th National Assembly is set to take place on Tuesday. But Korea's three major political parties have yet to decide which party should take the coveted position of National Assembly Speaker as well as the two deputy positions. To try to work out a compromise before they are forced to vote, the deputy floor leaders of the three parties, Kim Do-eub of the ruling Saenuri Party, Ha Kwan-ju of the main opposition Minju Party of Korea, and Kim Kwan-young of the minor opposition People's Party are scheduled to sit down for talks on Monday. It's their first meeting since Tuesday, the last time they tried to narrow their differences on the issue. They're also stuck on who should chair key parliamentary committees, which is another part of the negotiations. The Minju Party has the largest number of seats following its sweeping victory in the general election in April, which means it would be expected to take the speaker post. But the Saenuri Party has not yielded in negotiations and says the seat should go to the ruling party, regardless of which party has a majority. The Minju Party has 123 seats, the Saenuri Party has 122, and the People's Party has 38. If the parties fail to compromise and it comes down to a vote, the speaker position will likely go to an opposition lawmaker given the party's parliamentary majority. However, with the parties unable to see eye to eye, watchers say there's not much chance they'll reach an agreement by Tuesday's deadline. Shin Se-min, Arirang News.
South Korea will send one of its top officials to China on Wednesday to counter the latest visit by a high-ranking North Korean official to Beijing last week. This is all part of a broader strategy by the South to pressure countries friendly to North Korea. Kim Myo-gyeon reports.
South Korea has rolled out a one-on-one counter-diplomacy plan on the countries North Korea has been trying to cozy up to. Shortly after North Korea's ceremonial head of state Kim Yong-nam visited Equatorial Guinea for talks with President Teodoro Obiang, President Lee Kun-hee traveled to Ethiopia, Uganda, and Kenya and held discussions with her counterparts. 10 days after North Korea's vice chairman of the Workers' Party of Korea's Central Committee Kim Yong-chol visited Cuba to deliver a letter written by Kim Jong-un, South Korea sent its Foreign Minister Yoon Byung-se to Havana as well, citing diplomatic reasons. This time, it's China. Last week, a North Korean delegation led by Lee Soo-yong, vice chairman of the North Korean Workers' Party's Central Committee, went on a 3-day visit to China, during which he delivered another letter written by the North's young leader. Shortly after, Seoul's foreign ministry announced that Kim Hong-kyun, its special representative for Korean Peninsula Peace and Security Affairs, will travel to Beijing on Wednesday for talks with his Chinese counterpart, Wu Dai-wei. Seoul's multi-pronged approach is apparently aimed at mounting pressure on North Korea for its recent nuclear and missile provocations.
This will add an extra layer of burden to the North Korean regime. It could make North Korea feel uncomfortable approaching things with countries that are still friendly with them.
The South Korean envoy is expected to seek feedback on the Chinese government's talks with Lee and exchange views on the North Korean nuclear issue. Prior to his 2-day trip to Beijing, Kim will meet with Alain de Roy, the Secretary General of the EU's European External Action Service in Brussels on Monday and Tuesday. Kim Myo-gyeon, Arirang News.
A group of South Korean fishermen seized 2 Chinese boats on Sunday that were fishing illegally in waters near the South's maritime border with North Korea. The crews are currently being questioned in the western port city of Incheon. Lee Min-young has more.
Both Chinese fishing boats are sitting in Incheon Wharf after being handed over to South Korea's maritime police. Coast Guard officials say South Korean fishermen working out of the West Sea island of Yeonpyeong-do took control of the 22-ton and 15-ton Chinese fishing boats early Sunday morning, after detecting them fishing illegally in waters near the northern limit line. A total of 11 Chinese fishermen were aboard the boats.
We were heading out to sea to start working when we spotted several Chinese fishing boats working illegally in our waters, so we tried to stop them.
The fishermen said they decided to take collective action because they were angry seeing the boats trespass the sea border. However, the Coast Guard says the fishermen could have put themselves in harm's way as they left the safe fishing area around the island and went north.
Our fishing boats are not supposed to work or even navigate near the northern limit line.
They say the South Korean fishermen could have been fired upon by North Korea, given the sensitive nature of the area, which has witnessed flare-ups on numerous occasions, most seriously when the North shelled Yeonpyeong-do Island in 2010. The Coast Guard is planning to issue arrest warrants for the 2 Chinese captains on Monday and evict the rest of the crew members. Lee Min-young, Arirang News.
Senior diplomats from the United States and China will sit down for talks in Beijing on this Monday amid rising tensions over North Korea and the South China Sea. The 2 topics are expected to dominate the 2-day US-China strategic and economic dialogue, which kicks off today. Kim Hye-sung takes a look at what's at stake.
U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry and Treasury Secretary Jacob Lew will join their Chinese counterparts, State Councilor Yang Jie-chi and Vice Premier Wang Yang, for the 8th U.S.-China Strategic and Economic Dialogue in Beijing, which kicks off on Monday. The 2-day meeting will focus on 3 main issues: the South China Sea, North Korea, and trade.
At a major security conference in Singapore on Saturday, U.S. Defense Secretary Ashton Carter warned China was at risk of erecting a Great Wall of self-isolation if it continued building military bases on reclaimed islets in the South China Sea. Beijing defended the activities as its sovereign right, and the two countries are still at an impasse on the issue. North Korea is another thorny issue. A meeting between Chinese President Xi Jinping and top North Korean diplomat Ri Su-yong on June 1st, Xi's first meeting with a high-ranking North Korean official since 2013, took Washington by surprise. The U.S. is expected to continue pressing China to put more pressure on North Korea in addition to its recent move to impose tougher sanctions on North Korea's financial transactions. Trade is another issue. Just after China had bilateral talks with North Korea last week, the U.S. Commerce Department issued a subpoena to Chinese tech company Huawei Technologies to investigate whether it broke U.S. export controls by trading with North Korea and 4 other countries. This was seen as a warning to China, and experts believe Washington will use similar moves to push for further changes in China's currency controls. The security dialogue between U.S. and China has been held every year since 2009 and wraps up on Tuesday. Kim Hae-sung, Arirang News.
South Korea's exports, the main driving force of the economy, have been on a downward spiral for the longest period ever. So it's not really that surprising that the country's rank among OECD members in terms of export growth rate has fallen as well. And as our Kim Min-ji reports, conditions may not get better anytime soon.
South Korea's ranking in terms of export growth has plummeted over the last 12 months. According to the OECD, Korea sat in 4th place among 31 member countries in January last year, despite exports falling 0.9% from a year ago. Export conditions continue to worsen, pulling down Korea's ranking with it. And in January this year, when exports posted their biggest fall in nearly 6 years, the country sat at 28th place, down a staggering 24 notches from a year ago. Although Korea's exports continued their downward spiral in May, the pace of decline slowed to its lowest level so far this year. The government says there are signs that exports are on a recovery track. For instance, the volume of exports rose for the 2nd straight month in May, and the average daily export value also hit a high for this year. But experts aren't so optimistic, as external conditions are far from ideal. Oil prices may not pick up anytime soon, as last week's OPEC meeting on lowering production failed to reach any substantial agreement. On top of that, the U.S. Federal Reserve could hike rates as early as this month, and Britain might vote to leave the European Union. A combination of those could throw the global economy off track for a while.
Although some sectors may see a pickup in exports, overall it doesn't seem as though conditions will get better soon. Despite government efforts, the problems lie with external economic conditions, and that's not something the government can fix.
Experts stress the need for efforts from individual companies as well. They suggest local firms try and diversify their exports and foster new growth engines by ramping up investment in R&D. A failure to do so could mean more gloom in the months ahead. Kim Min-ji, Arirang News.
Samsung Group Chairman Lee Kun-hee has maintained his top spot on the list of stock-rich Koreans. According to data compiled by corporate tracker Chaebol.com, 23 Koreans own stocks worth over 1 trillion Korean won, or about $856 million US. Their combined share stood at over $56 billion as of last Friday, down 1.1% from the beginning of the year. The Samsung chairman saw his shares rise by 5.3%, securing his place as the richest stockholder in the entire country. Amore's Pacific CEO Seok-young-bae came second, followed by Lee Kun-hee's only son and Samsung Electronics vice chairman Lee Jae-yong. Now, voters in Switzerland have overwhelmingly rejected a basic income plan initiative that suggested a universal and guaranteed monthly benefit of slightly over $2,500 US after tax. 77% of voters in Sunday's referendum opposed the measure that would have applied to every Swiss citizen 18 years or older, regardless of their employment status or wealth. The supporters of the initiative had insisted that fewer jobs were available for workers now due to work becoming increasingly automated. The Swiss government said the plan would damage the economy as it would have required major spending cuts and tax increases. The parliament also argued that handing out free money would result in fewer people choosing to actually go to work. Switzerland is the first country to hold a national referendum on an unconditional income measure. And with that, that's where we're going to leave it on this Monday afternoon here in Seoul. I'm Mark Broom. Thank you, as always, for watching, and we'll be back throughout the day with more newscasts. Our next scheduled bulletin coming up at 3 p.m. Korea time. So until then, goodbye.